July 2, 1726. Ahlden Castle, Lower Saxony, Germany. Behind the thick stone walls of this isolated fortress, a woman takes her final breath. She is 60 years old, and she has not stepped beyond these walls in 32 years. No visitors, no family, no freedom. Her crime? She dared to love. This is the story of Sophia Dorothea of Celle, a princess born into privilege, married into power, and destroyed by passion. Her secret affair with a dashing Swedish count would lead to mysterious murder, international scandal, and a punishment so cruel that it would echo through the halls of European royalty for generations. This is a story of forbidden love, brutal betrayal, and a woman who paid the ultimate price for defying the iron rules of royal duty. On this documentary, we uncover the truth behind one of history's most tragic love affairs, a story buried in hushed whispers and sealed documents, a story of a woman erased from history by those who feared her truth. Our story begins on September 15th, 1666, in the Duchy of Brunswick-Lüneburg, in what is now northern Germany. Sophia Dorothea was born not in a palace, but in scandal. Her mother, Éléonore d'Emier d'Olbreuse, was a French Huguenot refugee, beautiful, intelligent, and entirely unsuitable for marriage to a German duke. Duke Georg Wilhelm of Celle had fallen desperately in love with Éléonore, but their union was morganatic, a marriage between unequals that denied their children any claim to inheritance or title. For the first 11 years of Sophia Dorothea's life, she was legally a bastard. Only in 1675, when it became clear the Duke would have no other heirs, was the marriage legitimized, and young Sophia Dorothea declared a princess. Sophia Dorothea grew up in the glittering court of Celle, surrounded by French culture, art, and refinement. She was educated in languages, music, and dance. By all accounts, she was strikingly beautiful, with dark eyes, a quick wit, and a spirit that refused to be tamed. She was her father's treasure, the jewel of Celle. But in the cold calculus of royal politics, she was also a valuable pawn. The House of Hanover was watching. Ernst August, the ambitious Duke of Hanover and Georg Wilhelm's younger brother, had his eye on consolidating power. He had sons who needed brides. More importantly, he needed his brother's territories. A marriage between the two houses would secure everything. Enter Georg Ludwig, Ernst August's eldest son, the future King George I of Great Britain. He was 21 years old, military-minded, serious to the point of coldness, and utterly uninterested in romance. Where Sophia Dorothea sparkled with life and culture, Georg Ludwig embodied duty and discipline. They were, in every sense, opposites. When the marriage was proposed in 1682, Sophia Dorothea was just 16 years old. She protested, she wept, she begged her father to reconsider. But royal daughters did not choose their destinies. They fulfilled them. On November 21st, 1682, Sophia Dorothea of Celle became the Princess of Hanover, bound to a man who would never love her. The wedding was magnificent, the celebration elaborate. But behind the pageantry, there was no joy. Georg Ludwig made no secret of his indifference. On their wedding night, he performed his duty and then returned to his mistresses. Sophia Dorothea, raised on French romances and dreams of love, found herself trapped in a marriage that was little more than a political transaction. Life at the Hanoverian court was a gilded prison. Sophia Dorothea moved into Herrenhausen Palace, a sprawling Baroque complex where every move was watched, every word reported, and every misstep recorded. Her mother-in-law, Sophia of the Palatinate, was a formidable woman who ruled the court with an iron will and an acid tongue. Sophia of the Palatinate despised her daughter-in-law. She saw Sophia Dorothea as beneath them, the daughter of a French commoner, tainted by her mother's inferior blood. She mocked her accent, criticized her manners, and turned the entire court against her. Sophia Dorothea was surrounded by enemies in her own home. In December 1683, Sophia Dorothea gave birth to a son, the future George II of Great Britain. Duty fulfilled. A year and a half later, she delivered a daughter, Sophia Dorothea. 2 children, 2 heirs, and her husband's interest in her evaporated completely. Georg Ludwig now spent his nights openly with his mistress, Melusine von der Schulenburg, flaunting his affair while his wife was expected to remain silent and obedient. Sophia Dorothea was 20 years old, beautiful, intelligent, and utterly alone. Her husband ignored her. His family despised her. The court whispered behind her back. She was a prisoner of protocol, trapped in a loveless marriage with no escape. The loneliness was suffocating. And then, in 1688, everything changed. His name was Philip Christoph von Königsmarck. He was a Swedish count, a decorated military officer, and by all accounts, one of the most attractive men in Europe. Tall, blonde, charming, and cultured, he cut a romantic figure that belonged more in poetry than in the rigid Hanoverian court. He had arrived in Hanover to serve in the Saxon army, and from the moment he and Sophia Dorothea met, the attraction was undeniable. At first, it was innocent. Polite conversation, shared dances at court functions, respectful admiration. But Königsmarck saw what others refused to see. A brilliant, passionate woman being slowly crushed by neglect and cruelty. And Sophia Dorothea saw in him everything her husband was not: warmth, attention, genuine affection. In a court built on cold calculation, they found something dangerous. They found understanding. By 1690, the friendship had deepened into something more. Secret meetings in shadowed corridors, whispered words in forgotten corners of the palace. They were playing with fire, and they both knew it. In Hanover, even the suspicion of impropriety could destroy a woman's reputation. An actual affair? That was unthinkable. That was treason. They began exchanging letters, hundreds of them, filled with longing, frustration, and desperate love. Sophia Dorothea poured out her heart on paper, describing her misery, her isolation, her dreams of escape. Königsmarck responded with declarations of devotion and increasingly bold plans. He spoke of running away together, of leaving Germany forever, of starting a new life where titles and duty didn't matter. Did they consummate their affair? History cannot say with certainty. But by 1694, their relationship had become reckless. They met more frequently. Their letters grew more passionate and less guarded. And the court, which noticed everything, began to notice them. Countess Platen, Sophia Dorothea's greatest enemy at court, and rumored to be a former lover of both Ernst August and Königsmarck himself, was watching. She had despised Sophia Dorothea for years, and now she saw an opportunity to destroy her completely. She began intercepting letters, planting spies, gathering evidence. By the summer of 1694, the net was tightening. Sophia Dorothea knew she was being watched. She grew paranoid, desperate. The letters continued, but now they spoke of urgency. Königsmarck proposed a final, desperate plan. They would flee Hanover together. He would resign his commission, and they would escape to Wolfenbüttel, where they might find protection. It was madness. Royal women did not run away. They did not abandon their children. They did not humiliate their husbands and their houses. But Sophia Dorothea was beyond caring about rules that had brought her nothing but suffering. She began making preparations. July 1694. The plan was set, but before they could escape, disaster struck. On the night of July 1st, 1694, Count Philip Christoph von Königsmarck vanished. He had been seen entering the Line Palace in Hanover around 10 p.m. He was never seen again. What happened that night remains one of history's darkest mysteries. The official story. Königsmarck simply left Hanover in disgrace, abandoning his post and his lover. But the whispers told a different tale. Whispers of hired assassins, of a violent struggle in the palace corridors, of a body hastily disposed of. Whispers that implicated the highest levels of the Hanoverian court. Decades later, during renovations to the Line Palace, workers made a grisly discovery: skeletal remains beneath the floorboards, in a location consistent with the rumored murder site. Were these the bones of Count Königsmarck? Modern analysis suggests they may well have been. But in 1694, there was only silence. Deafening, official silence. 4 days after Königsmarck's disappearance, Sophia Dorothea was arrested in her own apartments. No charges were formally brought. No trial was held. She was simply removed, erased from public life as efficiently as her lover had been erased from existence. On December 28, 1694, Georg Ludwig divorced Sophia Dorothea on the grounds of desertion and malicious desertion of marriage duties. She was forbidden from remarrying, forbidden from seeing her children, forbidden from using her title as Princess of Hanover. At 28 years old, Sophia Dorothea ceased to exist as a person in the eyes of the royal family. Her children, 11-year-old Georg August and 9-year-old Sophia Dorothea, were told their mother was dead. They were raised to forget her, to erase her from their memories, to believe she had never truly loved them. The boy would grow up to become King George II of Great Britain, forever marked by the absence of a mother he barely remembered. The girl would marry and have children of her own, children who would include Frederick the Great of Prussia, but she would never see her mother again. Before we continue with Sophia Dorothea's tragic fate, if you're finding this story as captivating as we do, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Echoes of Hidden Tales. We uncover forgotten stories of scandal, betrayal, and resilience from history's shadows. Share this video with anyone who loves untold historical tales. Your support helps us bring these hidden voices back to life. Now, let's return to Sophia Dorothea's prison walls. Ahlden Castle, a small fortress in Lower Saxony, surrounded by marshland and forests, remote, isolated, inescapable. This would be Sophia Dorothea's home for the next 32 years. She was given a modest suite of rooms, a small household staff, and an allowance that barely covered necessities. Her father, Georg Wilhelm of Celle, tried desperately to negotiate better conditions, but Ernst August and Georg Ludwig were unmoved. She was to remain there until death. No exceptions, no mercy. The rules of her imprisonment were cruel in their precision. She could walk in the castle gardens, but only within sight of her guards. She could attend the small church attached to the castle, but only for services. She could write letters, but every word was read and censored. She could receive visits from her mother, but only after humiliating searches and supervision. She could not leave the castle grounds. She could not see her children. She could not use her title. Most painfully, she could not remarry, while her ex-husband was free to take mistresses and eventually did remarry legally after becoming King of Great Britain in 1714. Sophia Dorothea remained frozen in time, forever the disgraced wife. How do you survive 32 years of imprisonment? How do you endure 3 decades of isolation, knowing the world moves on without you? Sophia Dorothea read voraciously. She maintained her dignity with iron discipline. She wrote letters to her mother that ached with longing and grief. She never stopped hoping that her children would come. They never did. Years turned into decades. The young, vivacious princess who had danced through the halls of Celle became a middle-aged woman, then an elderly one. Her beauty faded. Her health declined. The world beyond her windows transformed. Wars were fought. Kings rose and fell. In 1714, her ex-husband, Georg Ludwig, became King George I of England, making their son heir to the British throne. Sophia Dorothea remained in her castle, forgotten by history. In her final years, she grew increasingly frail. Rheumatism ravaged her body. Her eyesight failed. She spent her days in prayer and quiet resignation. But she never stopped asking for one thing: to see her children just once before she died. The request was denied. Georg Ludwig, now King of England, refused to acknowledge his former wife even on her deathbed. Her son, the Prince of Wales, was forbidden from visiting. Her daughter, the Queen of Prussia, sent messages of love but could not come. Sophia Dorothea would die as she had lived for 32 years, alone. On July 2nd, 1726, at the age of 60, Sophia Dorothea of Celle died at Ahlden Castle. The official cause was listed as pneumonia, but those who saw her in her final days whispered that she had died of a broken heart. She was buried in the small cemetery at Celle, in a simple grave, far from the royal tombs of Hanover. No kings attended her funeral. No princes mourned her passing. The newspapers barely mentioned her death. She had been erased so thoroughly from the official record that most people had forgotten she had ever existed. But among the common people, among those who remembered the beautiful princess who had been destroyed for daring to love, she became something more powerful than a forgotten royal. She became a legend. Georg Ludwig, now King George I, never remarried after Sophia Dorothea's death, though he kept his mistresses until his own death in 1727. Some say guilt haunted him. Others say he simply never cared enough to bother. He died while traveling in Germany, possibly suffering a stroke, and was buried in Hanover. He never expressed regret for his treatment of Sophia Dorothea. Her son, Georg August, ascended the throne as King George II. He was 44 years old when his mother died, and he had not seen her since he was 11. Did he mourn her? We cannot know. But throughout his reign, he maintained a complicated relationship with his father's memory, respecting the crown, but never the man. Some historians believe the trauma of losing his mother so completely shaped his own approach to family, making him unusually devoted to his own wife and children. Sophia Dorothea's daughter married into the Prussian royal family, and her grandson became Frederick the Great, one of history's most brilliant military minds and enlightened monarchs. Frederick knew the story of his grandmother's imprisonment, and some scholars argue it influenced his own skeptical view of royal marriages and aristocratic conventions. For 2 centuries, Sophia Dorothea's story remained buried in rumor and scandal. But in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, historians began uncovering the truth. Letters between Sophia Dorothea and Königsmarck were discovered in archives. Passionate, desperate, heartbreaking correspondence that proved the depth of their connection. Court documents revealed the extent of her mistreatment. Architectural investigations of the Luna Palace uncovered those mysterious skeletal remains. Today, Sophia Dorothea is remembered not as an adulteress or a disgrace, but as a victim of a brutal system that valued political expediency over human dignity. She was a woman born into a world where love was a luxury reserved for the common folk, where royal daughters were currency in dynastic deals, and where a wife's unhappiness was irrelevant as long as she produced heirs. Ahlden Castle still stands today, now a museum and memorial to its most famous prisoner. Visitors walk through the same rooms where Sophia Dorothea spent 3 decades of her life. They look through the same barred windows. They imagine the young princess who once dreamed of freedom and love, and who paid for those dreams with her entire life. Her story raises uncomfortable questions that echo through the centuries. What was her real crime? Falling in love? Seeking happiness? Daring to believe that her own desires mattered more than political convenience? In the cold arithmetic of 17th-century royal politics, these were unforgivable sins. But to modern eyes, Sophia Dorothea's tragedy reveals the casual cruelty of a system built on the subjugation of women. Sophia Dorothea was far from the first royal woman destroyed by scandal, and she would not be the last. From Anne Boleyn to Princess Diana, history is littered with women who found that the crown's embrace could become a stranglehold. But Sophia Dorothea's imprisonment stands out for its sheer duration and cruelty. 32 years, with no hope of release, for the crime of loving the wrong man. In 2006, nearly 3 centuries after her death, a memorial service was held at Ahlden Castle in Sophia Dorothea's honor, a small gesture of recognition for a woman whose suffering had been ignored for so long. Descendants of the Hanoverian line attended, offering the acknowledgement that their ancestors had denied her in life. On a quiet summer evening, you can still visit Ahlden Castle. You can stand in the gardens where Sophia Dorothea walked her endless circles, always watched, never free. You can look up at the windows where she waited for children who would never come. And if you listen carefully, some say you can still feel her presence, the echo of a woman who refused to be completely erased. Sophia Dorothea of Celle was born a princess and died a prisoner. She was married for political gain, betrayed by her lover's mysterious death, separated from her children, and entombed alive for 32 years. Her only crimes were wanting to be loved and refusing to suffer in silence. Today, we remember her not as a scandal or a footnote in royal genealogy, but as a human being who suffered immeasurably for daring to claim agency over her own life. In telling her story, we give her what history denied: a voice, recognition, and the understanding that her pain mattered. This is the story of the princess imprisoned for 32 years. The story they tried to bury. The story we refuse to forget. Thank you for watching this episode of Echoes of Hidden Tales. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more forgotten stories from history's shadows. Leave a comment below telling us what historical figure we should explore next. Until next time, remember, every silence in history hides a story worth telling.